Funny seeing you here.
Hello.
Hello.
How's it going? Warm. Yeah. It's just a little bit warm, isn't it?
Yeah. Hello, you with Calling All Stations and...
At Radio Robbie.
We're at... Here's the maps.
Here's the book.
Let's go collect some stations. But first, as always, let's catch you up with where I've already been. And since the last episode, we've naturally picked up, as expected, a glut of Zone 1 stations. Here we are passing through Euston to catch the sleeper, Waterloo to pay a visit to my favourite bookshop in London, and finally Charing Cross and Temple on an afternoon out in the West End. We start today's trip on the cusp of Essex, in the baking heat at Fairlop, the Tube's fourth least used station. We'll start our day with the rest of the Underground's quietest stations on this awkward part of the network, weaving our way in and out of the borough of Redbridge before properly making our way out into the provinces later on. The Great Eastern Railway arrived here in 1903 on their loop line from Ilford to Woodford. Note this is Ilford and not Leytonstone, something we'll discuss in a future New Works episode. The project was an ambitious one. The 1903 line was constructed purely to generate suburban growth. On construction, the line would have passed relatively uninterrupted through completely open countryside, spare a few rural hamlets like Barkingside and Chigwell. We've talked in this series about the early days of London's railway planners and how sometimes forethought was completely missed. Yet here on the loop, just like on the new lines before, forward planning was achieved on a scale we've never quite seen since. Looking at the grandeur, scale and capacity at Fairlop, it's quite easy to see that this station was earmarked for heavy suburban traffic. Bar the odd farm, stations like Fairlop and nearby Hainault sprung up in the middle of nowhere in the hope that housing developments would follow. Complemented by a bustling depot and maintenance facility, the loop's namesake of Hainault now serves a sprawling post-war housing estate on New North Road. However, it didn't always used to be this way.
The line is currently known as the Hainault Loop.
Yep.
Kind of makes sense. Important station on the line. It was the Fairlop Loop.
Yep.
Before that.
That's
before
right.
It was part of the Central Line.
That's right.
So what's the kind of history behind that?
I love how journalistic you're being as well. So,
Give yourself.
when it was built, Hainault was a fairly unimportant station. And it only became an important station with the New Works programme and when they built a depot here. That's when it became an important station. Before that, it was actually closed for a while because there was nothing here. Like at Fairlop, there wasn't really much in this area. The Great Eastern built this railway and thought, we'll build it and they will come. At Fairlop, to a certain extent, they did, and at Barkingside, it's Newbury Park. But at Hainault, nobody came. So they actually closed it for a while and then it reopened in the 30s and has now become a more important sort of end-of-the-line point. On foot, we make our way past Hainault Depot to Grange Hill, and we're about to do something a bit special. I'm a big fan of sort of boundaries and how they're marked or how they're not marked. And the moment we cross down into that alley, we're in Essex.
No!
Yes. So we're
This is Essex here.
This is Essex.
I can see Essex
For the first time on this map challenge, we're going to leave the confines of London.
Oh my god.
We're going to head out into Essex. Are you ready?
Yeah.
Come on then.
Southdale.
Big jump.
How big? Break my camera.
We're now in Essex. Nothing changes.
I feel like I'm home. Because it feels the same as
I'm
everywhere.
the one that's supposed to feel that, not you.
It's the same as everywhere.
Talking about boundaries, and on this side of the street, this side, Essex, on the other side, Redbridge, London. The only reason you can tell that here is the low emission sign there. That's the only clue that you're stepping into London on that side. And I just sort of love how innocuous that is and how arbitrary boundaries are, and that we've reached the end of London, but nobody really seems to notice here, and I quite like that about boundaries. Sometimes you just don't notice that they exist. The original ticket office here was destroyed by a doodlebug in 1944, but it would have been a near identical copy of that at Chigwell, which we'll see later. The current version was rebuilt in 1949 in a very austere, functional post-war style. The station master's house, which survived the damage, can still be seen to the left of the station. Damaged too in the same incident were the platform canopies, and though some of the original GER ironwork remains, it now supports a more basic post-war corrugated valance. The rest of the station continues to tell the story of the Great Eastern Railway's ambitions. The stations on this line were all designed, surprise surprise, in a uniform style by the company's architect, Neville Ashby. With a full suburban service expected, stations featured long, deep canopies, and full facilities and offices were provided on the spacious platforms, seemingly with no expense spared on capacity. So we're outside Chigwell. What a fantastic view behind us of the line heading out to Woodford as a train comes in on presumably a Hainault service. Again, in familiar fashion, many of the features here at Chigwell follow on from other Ashby offerings we've already seen. The canopies at some point were unusually reduced in width, presumably to save on maintenance, though curiously not reduced in length. Upstairs we see the original 1903 building that we were missing from Grange Hill. I'm a big fan of Chigwell Station. I love the frontage to that. Such a grand station considering this is the second least used underground station. It's a wonder this line survived at all. Once again here at Chigwell, the footfall it was designed for never really materialised after construction. This was further hampered by the post-war implementation of the Metropolitan Greenbelt, which encompasses much of the area and prevented urban sprawl. Well, we're in Essex now, but we're still in the confines of TfL. Obviously we've just got off the station, but we've still got London buses.
Oh, yeah.
We've still got London bus service. We're not fully out into the sticks yet. We will be later, but we're not fully there yet. I just wanted to point out these lovely original railway cottages. These ones here aren't, they've obviously been mimicked, but these ones behind us here with their little canopies, these are original railway cottages. For many years in the 20th century, the line between Woodford and Hainault operated as shuttle only. The low usage allowed London Transport to use the route as a test bed for new trains and technologies without getting in the way of too many paying punters. From the mid-60s, the route was the first on the Underground to run experimental automated trains. This acted as a proving ground and precursor to the technologies on the then under construction Victoria line. Despite the Central line operating a traditional signalling system, this practice continued until the 90s, when the line underwent a signalling and rolling stock upgrade of its own. We're the only people here.
We are.
Isn't that peaceful? Love it.
It is 4 o'clock on a Sunday.
I know, but it is the second least used station after all. It's your dad. Hello. You right?
Yeah.
How's it going?
On the train.
We just got here. So here we are, Roding Valley, the least used tube station. This is it. What do you think? It's just, you hear the birds, it's peaceful.
It's really got that least used feel to it. Yeah, listen to that. That is loud for a tube station. to have
the noise of the birds.
Chaffinch, that's probably not even a chaffinch. People don't write in the comments below saying, do you not know your bird songs? No, I don't know my bird songs. But I'm just going to say that's a chaffinch. You've got a little label sticking out by your ear.
Oh, I have. How long has that been there? After the lack of development surrounding the original GER route, and in spite of nearby Greenbelt restrictions, it may come as somewhat of a surprise that Roding Valley was added to the route, now under the control of the LNER in 1936. Ironically, funded by a local housing developer, the station opened as a limited facilities wooden halt to serve the nearby estates springing up on Buckhurst Way. In a cruel twist of fate, and despite the guaranteed catchment, Roding Valley's infrequent service and proximity to both Woodford and Buckhurst Hill has left the station with the unenviable title as being least used on the network, mustering a mere 500 return journeys a day.
The most, what is it, the most least used? No, the least
The least
the least used station on the Central Line, or on the whole of the Underground?
Whole network.
The whole network, the least used station. It's got the most number of people, though, of all the stations we've been to today so far.
Well, that's difficult.
Don't ask.
Thankfully, that close proximity plays into our favour as we ditch the 20-minute wait and head to Woodford on foot. You can see, but just over there behind Rob's head is the sign for Essex. So I'm about to cross back into London. Should we do it?
We're pushing the boundaries yet again.
Right.
Let's go.
Here we go. The sign's just up there, and I'm going to cross back into London. Here we go. There's the sign for Redbridge. How are you finding the weather?
Well, I think this is now pretty much soaked through to the core.
Anyway, we're outside Woodford. We've just walked from Roding Valley. Behind you, I'm going to spin around, is a road called Snakes Lane. Snakes Lane is now split into east and west. But at one point, before the Underground took over, behind us there used to be a level crossing. And you used to be able to drive straight through, and there would have been a signal box opening gates. But obviously when it got transferred to the Underground, you don't want people wandering around near electric tracks. Obviously they closed all the level crossings. There's one at South Woodford as well.
Oh.
So that's the site of the old level crossing. The original 1856 station building on the eastbound side is a slightly larger copy of the one at Snaresbrook. Both are the oldest stations with original buildings on the network. Unfortunately though, here at Woodford, the Eastern Counties Railway structure has been hidden behind a 1980s porch. But parts of that old building do still remain open to the public on the platform side. So we've made it to Buckhurst Hill, and it is, I say, so warm. It's got my trusty Middleton Press book as always. Here's a picture of the station as it was in 1892. Obviously we've lost the old canopies, but it's still in pretty complete condition as it was in 1892. The William Neville Ashby station we see now replaced the first ECR station, which was sited slightly further to the south. London Transport did little to change the feel of the station when it took over the running of the branch in 1948, and, just like Fairlop, Grange Hill and Chigwell, it still retains much of Ashby's late Victorian charm. The 1856 terminus here at Loughton was fairly short-lived. After just 9 years, in 1865, the line was extended to Epping and a new through station was constructed. The old station is now buried underneath this Sainsbury's car park, this map clearly showing the gap where it once would have stood, with the extension abruptly veering to the east at 90 degrees to avoid the town centre. But modern Loughton certainly doesn't look very 1865, does it? And compared to what we've already seen, this modernist structure sticks out like a sore thumb, so naturally the story doesn't end here. The station was again rebuilt in 1940 with additional stabling sidings to the south in readiness for London Transport to electrify the lines for underground use. The whole complex is Grade 2 listed and features this rather unusual double-sided centre platform layout, allowing for ease of reversal of terminating services.
Never been to Debden.
Bit of a weird hodgepodge of a station there, sort of square 60s modernisation, but you do have little bits of old station there, and you've got some old signal cabin in the background there as well.
Little house.
So it's been adapted and it's been changed throughout its life, Debden. Yeah, there's not really much to say about Debden, but we're going to go for a little walk now. We're going to walk to Theydon Bois.
A little walk, he says.
A little
3-mile walk.
First we're going to find some ice
heat.
cream. Opened as Chigwell Lane, this was another build it and they will come situations. And like with Hainault, it was closed for a short period between 1916 and 1919. It now plays host to the sleepy post-war Debden estate on the edge of Loughton, and this overlooked gem of a modernist shopping parade. Right, we're back in Essex now, Debden. We're on our way to Theydon. Now, you see that little innocuous green patch of grass down there?
I do, Andy, I do.
You do. That is where London ends.
It's the end of London.
That is the end of London. It's where the continuous sprawl of urbanisation of London, and you can follow it on the map. At this point it ends. There's a bit that runs a bit further north to the left of us, But once we hit that, we're into the Essex countryside. Are you excited?
Show me the green.
Let's go.
And Q train. Still rolling.
So we are now in the middle of nowhere. Well, it's not really the middle of nowhere, it's the edge of Debden. So before, when we were talking about being on the edge of London, we were down here. So there is a little bit of London to go, but I'd say that there is a significant gap between the edge of suburbanised London and Theydon Bois, which is the village. So we're down here, and I'm just working out if we turn left or right. And I think we turn left. I think we go that way. Follow the sound of the M11. You can just about see the track over there. With Greater London behind us and the gap between stations growing ever bigger, we head further into the wilderness, but there's still evidence of the pull of the capital. It's lovely, isn't it? We're about halfway between Debden and Theydon. And these lovely little country paths. You can see this one heading off into the distance, and we've still got 2 more stations to go. We're still not at the end of the line. We better get a crack on, because we've still got 2 stations to go.
Half a bottle of water left. It's going to be a problem.
It's so warm. See, we had options today. We were going to do this bit or the district line to Upminster. And that has aircon. Why didn't we do that? Anyway, onwards. We're still at it. We're still on the go to Theydon. But look, we found the tube. It's back. This is the bridge over the central line. We're not far from Theydon now. So we go pick that up and head up to Epping, where we're going to finish. And hopefully have a pint. From Theydon Bois, you can be in the square mile within the hour, yet out here it would be easy to forget this tranquil village has anything to do with London at all. The 1865 Eastern Counties Railway Station saw some modest modernisations in the 50s, but still sits surrounded by countryside, much like it did when it opened, with only the faint hum of the nearby motorways as any sort of reminder of where you actually are. In fact, as we make our way up to our final station of the day, and long after leaving the London borough of Redbridge behind at Woodford, we now go one step beyond and leave the confines of the M25 altogether.
Where this train turns, please mind the gap between train and all changes.
The line's present terminus was built in 1865 as a through stop on the route to Ongar. It became part of the underground network in 1949, though only as far as here. Passengers for Ongar would have had to continue by steam right up until 1957. The Central Line shuttle to Ongar was withdrawn in 1994, but arrive at Epping on a weekend, and a classic route master will whisk you away to North Weald, where you can again enjoy the sights and sounds of steam on this line.
Epping.
We're at the end.
Yes, I feel like a sense of accomplishment.
We've walked a long way.
But I feel like I've also had a bit of a bath
Yes.
en route. Sort of,
So one final interesting fact about Epping, we're in zone 6 now.
yeah, a long way out.
A long way out. So yeah, the local council actually subsidise Epping to be in this zone, so it's cheaper for the local residents to use Epping Station. And you
Power to the people.
and you can tell they want people to use it because of the massive station car park, which of course used to be the yard, the rail yard, sheds, steam loco sheds, all that kind of stuff. Anyway, I think it's time for a pint, don't you?
Maybe a couple.
Taxi! Look who's here!
Hello. Taxi service.
Taxi service.
Wilds of Essex. You need a wild Essex girl to come pick you up.
Take me to the pub.
And me.
Don't forget, you can catch up with the whole challenge by heading over to www.callingallstations.co.uk and clicking on the 270, where you can read stories, anecdotes, histories and notes for each station as I visit them, along with more images. You've been with Calling All Stations, and we'll see you at the next stop.
bad stuff about this map, this extra blob on Victoria, this needless, pointless blob to denote the Gatwick Express. Why? Why is this necessary? The train says Gatwick Express. Express means it won't stop. So to take up a whole line on the map is a needless waste of ink.
Map gripes with Rob Champion.